former and future president's detail has been asking for beefed up protection and resources for weeks, but has been rebuffed time and again by Biden's DHS. Was Biden's regime behind the attack, or did it deliberately do everything it could to allow it to happen? So I don't know where you were. I was actually out spending time in central rural Virginia with my wife, my child, and some very dear friends of mine, including Matt and Mercedes Schlapp. Now, you may know them. Matt runs the American Conservative Union, which is the group that puts on the CPAC conference. Mercedes, of course, is a television figure. She's on Newsmax all the time now. She used to work in the Trump White House. Both Matt and Mercedes are sort of, in that Trump inner circle, in that they don't work for the campaign, but they're very closely connected to the campaign. And we were all together with a couple of other dear friends of ours having a dinner, or we were preparing dinner, actually, when all of this happened. And after some prayers, Matt and Mercedes said that they knew firsthand. In fact, Matt's been saying this since the last CPAC conference in February, when President Trump gave a speech in D.C., in National Harbor in D.C., that the Trump campaign and the Trump family have been complaining about the lack of Secret Service attention, that they've been asking for more protection. They've been asking for a larger detail. They've been saying that there are problems, that the detail that they have is overworked, that they're spread thin, and they need more personnel. And the Secretary Mayorkas of Homeland Security under the Biden administration has denied them at every turn. And this matches their absolutely horrific and almost criminal denial of Secret Service protection for Robert Kennedy Jr. The Secret Service, Homeland Security, the Biden administration, they keep saying, well, President Trump is getting the same kind of security that any candidate would get, which is absolute and total bullshit. Because Donald Trump needs a little bit more than what any other candidate would get. I'm sorry. He's not Lamar Alexander from 2008. Wait, 1998, 1996. God, I'm dating myself. He's not, I don't know why Lamar Alexander is the first name I could pick. Okay, let me try another one. He's not Mike Huckabee from 2000. Okay? That's not who we're dealing with here. That wasn't 2000. Jesus. Sorry, it's been an emotional 48 hours. The point is, Donald Trump is not just any other presidential candidate. He's been vilified internationally, worldwide, as an existential threat. He's been vilified by the president of the United States. Also, he's not just a presidential candidate, he's a former president. Both of those things combined, you would think, would add to the Secret Service protections. Also, unlike this president who campaigns in a basement, he campaigns with giant rallies with thousands and thousands of people that turn up for it. This requires more security. You don't just do a cookie cut. Oh, hey, thanks for shopping at Secret Service R Us. You're a presidential candidate. Oh, here's our package. That's what you get. Bye-bye now. Enjoy. No, that's not how you do security to protect a person from assassination. You know how I know that? Because in 2008, I assure you, Barack Obama got a lot more Secret Service protection and a bigger detail than John McCain got as the Republican nominee. Because Barack Obama did rallies in front of 50,000 people. So knowing from my friends who are connected to the inner circle, knowing that there have been frequently denied requests for extra Secret Service detail, it calls so many things into question about what happened. This should have never happened. This was an absolute disgrace. The fact that the head of the Secret Service, this woman, we'll get to her in a minute, has not resigned. And how do you not see this as an abject failure? The Secret Service literally has one job. Oh, I know they're responsible for other things too. But no. When push comes to shove, they have one job, or they certainly should have one job. And that is to provide security and protect the president, the vice president, and other people that get Secret Service protection. That's it. Protect them. and you make sure that things like this don't happen. And when a thing like this does happen, whoever's in charge should resign in disgrace. Sean Davis of The Federalist reported this the evening of the assassination attempt. A source familiar with Trump's security detail tells The Federalist that the former and future president's detail has been asking for beefed up protection and resources for weeks, but has been rebuffed time and again by Biden's DHS. Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security. He's also in charge of the border. Hell of a job, Alejandro. DHS, which oversees Secret Service protective detail, wasn't responsive to those requests for more resources, the source said. Was Biden's regime behind the attack, or did it deliberately do everything it could to allow it to happen? Developing. And of course, everyone in the media, left-wing pundits, will say, how dare you? How dare you so suggest that they wanted this to happen, that this was an inside job, that they were... Here's the thing. If you provide the appropriate amount of security that the campaign is asking for because of very real, viable threats to the candidate, if you do your job, then no one even needs to ask those questions. But your behavior invites this kind of scrutiny. Dan Bongino, our colleague on across conservative media and multiple platforms, certainly here on Rumble, if you're watching on Rumble, and a colleague on my radio network. He appeared. He's a former Secret Service agent. He appeared with Jesse Waters last night. Take a look.
Former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino joins me now. Is this gross incompetence, or is it something even more scary that we can't even think about?
No, it's gross incompetence. I mean, how do you think about it, right? The counter sniper team, they train out, the Secret Service counter sniper team, obviously they're to mitigate a sniper threat. They train out to 1,000 yards. So we're talking about, say it was 200 yards. It was actually less than that where this shooter was, right? You're talking about a fraction of what they're trained at. They're also trained to spot guys in ghillie suits, cracked open windows.
Right.
He's on a white roof in broad daylight.
He's on a white roof.
Now, again, it'd be easy for me to say, oh, well, let's not get into Monday morning quarterbacking. Bro, it's not a freaking football game. It's the president of the United States' life. The Secret Service has one job. Well, outside of counterfeiting and protection, it is one job. You keep the body alive no matter what. They came within a millimeter of this guy losing his life. I don't understand some of the commentary that's, they did a great job. Well, the body guys, that response was, brave. They ran up there. They didn't know there could have been 10 more shooters.
Right.
No doubt. Know those guys. Pretty heroic what happened there. But the security failure in the perimeter is a complete, total debacle. No one should defend this.
So when you have guys, we just played the sound, when you have fans saying, hey, there's a guy with a gun over there, to multiple law enforcement guys, and they still are just looking around like this and no one. How does that happen?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm getting from a number of sources that people are feeding to me their information, obviously, because they want to fix it. They're concerned, and I think you're going to see a lot of whistleblowers. I'm hearing there were very, very few. I don't want to give an exact number, but very few actual, I don't think anyone else has reported this, actual Secret Service poststanders at that site. That they were temp HSI,
right.
Homeland Security folks, they're great folks. I'm not knocking them, but that's not what they do specifically. We do protection, and we're trained for that. So I'm hearing that. I'm also hearing that the counter sniper team, that they had a problem seeing over the elevation. That's why I didn't engage right away.
Oh, come on.
But that's not the problem. The problem, well, it's the problem, but that's not the real. The problem is, where the hell was the aerial visual support? Why was there no helicopter? Why was there no drone? Why was there no FLIR? Why was there no thermal? Forward-looking infrared. How the hell is the crowd acting as the freaking counter surveillance operation?
I know, if that's the best asset you have is random Trump supporters telling police that there's a guy with a gun, what technology are they deploying? They're bragging about they have all this new technology. I didn't see it. Tell me about when they rush him over to the van, I guess, the vehicle. It seemed like some of the Secret Service agents, I just don't know if they had the stature that I would expect to see and the gravitas that I would expect to see protecting the former president?
Well, the rule is maximum to the protectee, minimum to the problem, right? Because you don't know how many problems there are. So if you try to rush to one problem, like the Malcolm X shooting, and there's another problem over there, you're going to wind up getting dead quick. So they did the right thing by rushing to the protectee. On the evac out, yeah, you do see a couple of agents who one couldn't reholster the weapon and things like this. So yeah, there were some definitely.
And the other one was like 5'4".
Yeah, I mean, you're going to find out in the coming weeks that the physical fitness standards for men and women are different. That's weird because the protectee's weight and height doesn't change for a man or a woman.
Does Cheadle get fired anytime soon?
She needs to go immediately. She has disgraced the Secret Service multiple times. She needs to go. She needs to be fired ASAP, but Mayorkas doesn't have the cojones to do it.
Yeah, she won't be fired. She won't be fired because Mayorkas doesn't have the cojones, and certainly Biden doesn't have the cojones. If he didn't fire anybody after the withdrawal of Afghanistan, they're not going to fire her. More on her in just a moment, but you heard mention of the witnesses, the people who were there supporting President Trump, who were in the crowd, and what they saw and what they said to police officers. Let's take a look at some of those reports and why what they saw and what they reported. You know, see something, say something, see something, say something, see something, say something died in Butler, Pennsylvania, because people saw something and they said something. And somehow the law enforcement officers who heard, hey, there's a guy on the roof. We think he's got a gun. In fact, we see it. It's definitely a gun. At that moment, they couldn't communicate to the Secret Service about what was going on to mitigate this and to stop it. What the hell is that all about? And again, it appears that it's because Secret Service had such a small complement at this rally that they had to rely so heavily on local law enforcement, and they had different frequencies, different communications, and nobody could talk to each other about the obvious threat that was there. So let's take a look at what those witnesses saw and what they said.
Just take me back. What were you doing before the shooting happened? And then what did you see and hear?
I was just hanging, standing there like everybody else, waiting for Trump. And as Trump started, I noticed two officers that were looking for something or somebody. I was looking around myself and seeing a guy on top of one of the buildings go in between one building to the next, and went and told the officer that he was up there. And when I went back to my spot, I heard that people could still see the person from where they were standing. So I checked that out, and I went back to tell the officer that if he came over there, he could see them. And when I turned my back is when the shots started. And then it took me a second or two to figure out exactly what it was. And then it was just getting out of there and helping some other person out with her child. And we got out, and that was the end of that. And I went and left, and that was all.
All right, a little bit more. I do love just everyday Americans who were part of this historic moment telling what they saw and what they did. These are all the redneck fascist rubes that Joe Biden looks down his nose at. They were there, they saw it, and they said, here's BBC.
Someone who was here. You weren't inside the event, nope, but you were just outside. Tell us what you saw. So we had a party here all day. You can see behind us at the Brinkles Farming Greenhouse here. We had a party, and we all decided, hey, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally. Right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up. And probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, But we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof. And he had a gun, right? He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, oh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2 or 3 minutes, Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots rang out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You were up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service?
We were telling the police. We were pointing at them for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here? I mean,
that's the question. Because I know everybody's saying, well, of course, the sniper couldn't take him out because I was on the downslide of the slope of the roof. And again, no expert here. I'm not a former Secret Service agent like Dan Bongino, but I don't think you need to be one. If you had sent any sentient American adult to this rally space and said, imagine the worst thing possible, imagine how an assassination could take place here, what parts of this area would you want covered and cleared and monitored at all times? And you would think that that roof would be one of those things. I think most people would look at it and say, well, this is the closest roof that someone could be on to take a sniper shot at. And if the Secret Service snipers are right here and they can't see the backside of the roof, then you should probably have somebody over here monitoring the roof. You can't money man back. No, I don't think it takes an expert. But most disconcerting about this is the fact that that gentleman with a remarkable head of hair and other people on the ground there saw it happening, so much so that they could take videos of what was happening and notified law enforcement, and still no response. Have you seen this video?
He was doing the job. I wouldn't even be doing this. I get some beautiful police support.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look, there he is right there.
All right, now I want to go back so you can get a lay of the land here. But there's the roof right there, and this is a great, because everyone's looking at the overhead shot, and they're saying, "Oh, it's what are they? 130 yards?" I think they're saying, or such, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's hard to really grasp how close this is." Take a look at the beginning of this video again. But that's the building. That's the dude right there, crawling up to the roof, and it's a very slight slope, right? All right, now look again at the beginning of this video. All right, he's got a shot of this big widescreen. You see this big black pole here? That's what the American flag behind Donald Trump is suspended from. So as he starts to pan to the left here, you can see, there's the flag, which is just above the stage. So see where the O in opportunity is? That's basically where the stage is and where Trump is speaking. All right. And now you just pan to the left a little bit, and there's the building, like the first building in front and to the side of where the president is speaking. The very first building. And did you see how close it was? There's the flag. There's the stage. And he's right there. All right, so let's watch the video continue.
There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down. You see him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
Instead of merely fighting like hell to get a senator.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And
There he
it's
is.
not easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals.
He's
We
on
have
the roof. He's
drug
right.
dealers. We have people that
Right
should not be
here.
here.
Right on the roof.
It's much
He's
tougher
standing
than
up now.
it happens.
He went right on the roof, big guy.
He was doing
All right, so you've seen that video, or if you haven't seen it, that's a pretty great example of not only the distance and proximity and the threat, but the fact that so many people saw it. They weren't even watching Trump. They were watching this guy and saying, "Officer, officer, officer." Now I want you to watch this same video in a side by side with the president speaking.
He was doing his job. I wouldn't even be doing this. I get some beautiful places, borders, ocean, the
Look, they're all pointing.
the Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there. See him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And still I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a Senate.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And it's
There he
not
is.
easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals.
He's
We
on
have
the roof. He's
drug
right
dealers. We have people that
Right
should not
here,
be here.
right on the
And
roof.
it's much tougher than if it happened.
He went right on the roof, big guy.
Ever. In recorded history, we're the best border. In fact, if they could ever put up a chart, I don't know if they can do it. Do you guys have access to that chart that I love so much? You don't mind if I go off teleprompter, do you? Because these teleprompters are so damn boring. I try and explain that. Oh, there's it. Wow. You guys are doing it. They're getting better with time. My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then
Now we're going to pause it here just for a second and keep it running. But I think that, I mean, you see what's happening here in terms of the scrutiny of law enforcement and Secret Service at this event. We're now almost a minute and 45 from the moment in that video where people said, "Hey, look at everyone pointing at this guy over on the roof." The guy was actually noticed before the video began. So you can pad this up another 30, maybe 60 seconds, right? But here we are a minute 45 into this. From the moment the people in that video that we just looked at saw the guy crawling on the roof with the gun, and still nothing, still nothing, still nothing. Now we're going to keep it rolling here because you know what's coming.
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something,
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful, guys.
We got breaking news. We got breaking news coming in. Shots fired. Seems to be shots fired at the Trump rally. Is he okay? Need to go live right now. We are live right now at the Trump rally. We don't know if President Trump has been shot. We know he hit the ground. We do not know if President Trump has been shot. He's up. He's up. Shots are still continuing to be fired. He's giving a thumbs up, everybody. He's giving a thumbs up.
Incredible mashup, by the way, done, and it's tagged here with Milk Bar TV. I saw it on the Patrick Bet David, Patrick Bet David account on X, and it's phenomenal and it's incredibly telling. And you wonder why questions are being asked right now. You wonder why answers aren't being demanded right now. to say that it's a failure is an understatement. Obviously, it's a failure. Somebody shot at and came this close to murdering the former president and the Republican nominee for president. Failure doesn't begin to describe what happened here. And what is the point of all the security? What is the point of the perimeters? What I don't know about you. Have you ever gone to a Trump rally? Have you ever gone to a speech? All of the security protocols that you have to go through. And what exactly are they doing here if, number one, they don't cover that building, and number two, when people see a suspicious man crawling on a rooftop where he shouldn't be with a gun and nobody does anything until after the shots ring out? What are we doing here? What's the point? Now, there are reports. Well, there's two reports from this morning. One is that the Secret Service did not clear that building, that they relied on local law enforcement to do it. And by the way, if that's the case and if that's protocol, fine. Maybe have a line of communications open at all times between Secret Service and the people on the ground monitoring it. So when a cop sees something, they can say, hey, we got somebody on the roof, take them out. But apparently that can't be done, because that leads us to this second story. One local police officer climbed to the roof, encountered the attempted assassin, who pointed his rifle at the officer. The officer retreated down the ladder, and then the shots were fired. That's when Secret Service snipers shot at him. And there's another aspect of this story that you saw alluded to in the Jesse Waters interview with Dan Bongino, and that is the response of the agents after shots rang out. Now, listen, it was absolutely stirring and incredible to see those agents doing their job. They jumped on the president and surrounded him to get him to his evacuation vehicle, knowing full well that they could be next, that they could be shot, that they could be murdered. This is incredible bravery. This is what the Secret Service does, and they should be applauded for it. Just an incredible instant response from those agents right there, the body detail, right? Amazing. Because they don't know how many shooters there are. They don't know what's happening. All they know is one thing: get your body on top of the protectee. And if that means that you're in the line of fire, so be it. That's your job. That's amazing. Now come the questions. Transcript of what happened at the time. You'll see 1811, Trump touches right side of his face. See 1811:35, Trump takes cover as agents rush to the podium. Male agent 1, get down, get down. More shots heard as Trump surrounded by agents. 1811:41, female agent. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Man yelling, gunshot, woman screams. Male agent, go around to the spare, go around to the spare. I think that means the vehicle, the evac vehicle. What are we doing? What are we doing from the female agent? We actually have the moment that we're talking about here that's in that transcript with captions and the audio. Take a listen. Kudos to the team at Jesse Waters Show there at Fox.
This lady wasn't prepared, and the Secret Service isn't answering any questions.
That's right. I mean, again, amazing. All of these agents, including this woman, doing her job to jump in there and be a protectorate and be a body willing to take a bullet. But when you're in that moment and the only thing coming out of your mouth is, what are we doing? What are we doing? Where do we go? It suggests that maybe you're not trained to the full extent that you should be trained. Right? Because that's the only voice we heard asking those questions. And there's more. I'm sure you've seen this video. But once they got the president to his evacuation vehicle, this was the scene. Now, again, I want to at least take a moment and acknowledge that this is a chaotic scene and a chaotic situation, but it's also the type of situation that these men and women train for, to be able to keep the president protected and get him out of there as soon as possible. And we don't know what everybody's role and responsibility here is. And again, they know that they took care of the one shooter, but they still don't know everything. They don't know if there's somebody in the crowd who's supposed to follow up and try to get there. This is still a dangerous situation. And I can tell you this, from watching the Secret Service, going all the way back to the last time there was an attempted assassination of a president, it was Ronald Reagan, and it was 40 years ago. There's a lot of things going on. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of different responsibilities, and everybody's got a different job. But I can tell you that when you're in the Secret Service, you all have one job. While you're doing your other tasks, you have one other job, and that is to present the image of calm, control, and responsibility. That this is your job and you are professional, and it may be a chaotic situation, but you are not in a chaotic state. And that's not what we see here. Not from those three agents. In fact, they're projecting a level of chaos, which is, well, disconcerting to say the least. What do we know about the woman who's in charge of the Secret Service? Well, we know she used to be on Vice President Biden's detail. She protected Joe Biden when he was vice president. Then when Mike Pence became vice president, she left the Secret Service and took a corporate job as the head of security for PepsiCo. And then President Biden brought her back after he won the election to run the Secret Service. Recently, CBS News did a profile of her, and she explained what her task was as the first woman in charge of the Secret Service, what her full focus and responsibility would be.
To expand hiring, they're aiming to have 30% women recruits by 2030, and even allowed YouTube influencer Michelle Carre to train with agents.
But I'm very conscious as I sit in this chair now of making sure that we need to attract diverse candidates and ensure that we are developing and giving opportunities to everybody in our workforce, and particularly women.
To expand hiring.
So her main responsibility is to make sure that she's expanding opportunities for the workforce, which is, I guess, very laudable, and maybe is what she excelled at Pepsi. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe, I'm just sort of a dinosaur, and I'm thinking of things in the, back in the Reagan era. As I mentioned, Reagan was the last president where there was an attempted assassination. But it seems to me that when you take over the Secret Service, the United States Secret Service, when articulating what your main focus is, it shouldn't be to opening up a diverse workforce with opportunities for everyone. I think your main focus should be protecting the president and protecting the vice president. And every single decision you make needs to be shot through that filter, that lens. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Now, does this make us better equipped to keep the president alive? Does this make us better capable of making sure that there isn't an assassination attempt on a candidate for president? And if it doesn't pass that test, maybe you set it aside. I don't know if you've been following the news with the Secret Service, but I live in Washington, D.C. I cover the news here on my on this show and on my morning talk show. There was recently an incident at Joint Base Andrews. That used to be called Andrews Air Force Base. It's the Air Force Base where the president and vice president and other major dignitaries in federal government fly out of. They don't use the airports here. No, they fly out on Air Force One, Air Force Two, Air Force Two. They call everything else other than Air Force One just one of those United States planes that the Secretary of State will fly out on or the Vice President will fly out on. A lot of air traffic over at Andrews. There's also a lot of Secret Service there as there's various shifts going here and there and to and fro from the White House to other various parts of the federal government. Well, a Secret Service agents at Air Force Andrews, Joint Base Andrews, had a nervous breakdown a couple of months ago, got into a physical altercation with other Secret Service agents. They had to be subdued and restrained. They claimed that it was a medical incident of some sort. It even involved this woman. It was a female Secret Service agent unholstering her weapon and throwing, well, there's reports of her throwing feminine products and things. And this is someone on Kamala Harris's detail, by the way. There's story after story after story of things going on in the Secret Service right now under this woman's watch where there is discontent. In fact, check this story out. If you look at the date, it's from Jennifer Jacobs of Bloomberg News, those crazy right-wingers over there at Bloomberg. This is dated May 9th, over 2 months ago. There's a petition circulating inside the U.S. Secret Service that flags concerns about, quote, a number of recent Secret Service incidents indicative of inadequate training, unquote, a double standard in disciplinary actions, and a vulnerability, quote, to potential insider threats, unquote. Insider threats that could pose a risk to U.S. national security. It was first shared Monday, I'm told, and has 39 signatures so far. Aim is to call for a congressional investigation, the petition says. That's from May 9th. And, well, they have their congressional investigation because Congressman Mike Waltz of the Armed Services Committee in the House of Representatives said that this Monday, after the Republican convention, they will be holding hearings on the Secret Service, and they've asked Ms. Cheadle to testify if she's still employed at that time. But this was May 9th, and this was reported by Bloomberg News, and it was about discontent and problems in the Secret Service that says that there is potential insider threats. Now, this is the first you're hearing about it. First, I heard about it when it was pointed out over the weekend as well after this incident. Now, ask yourself, knowing what we know now and what happened, do you wonder how many reporters the New York Times put on this story when it was revealed on May 9th? How many reporters do you think covered this from the Washington Bureau for the New York Times? I'm thinking none. And do you know why? Because the New York Times had to assign all of their investigative reporters to the really important story regarding Justice Alito's wife's spat with her neighbors in Alexandria, Virginia, and whether she put out a historic flag in front of her house or flew an American flag upside down as a signal of distress. How many reporters did the New York Times have on the story of Samuel Alito's wife getting into a fight with her neighbor and flying an appeal to heaven flag versus the reporters they didn't assign to a complete and total breakdown at the U.S. Secret Service? There are lots of questions that still have to be asked and answered by the Secret Service. This is just scratching the surface. But knowing everything that we've just learned about what happened the afternoon of the 13th, what happened in the build-up to it, and all of these other stories now we're learning about the emphasis on a diverse workforce instead of actually a competent and thoroughly badass force of agents who are just there for one reason and one reason only, not to represent a gender or represent a race, but to protect this nation's leaders. I can tell you the Secret Service will be first on the list of the new president's agenda to fix what's broken in Washington.